Hello, welcome back, y'all. Dr. Nicole Truesdale. As always, I'm your host and guide for this podcast, Abolitionist Dreamscape. So welcome. All right, y'all. This is episode 13. Episode 13. I'm here. You're here. We're here together as always. And as always, I appreciate y'all showing up with me in this bi-weekly schedule as I talk about all kinds of shit. And this time around, I got a little treat for y'all. It's going to be one of my longer episodes because I'm in conversation. This time I'm in conversation with Donnell A. McLaughlin. And if you follow me on my social media platforms like TikTok or Instagram, you may have also come across or follow Donnell as well. He goes by at Donnell Writes. And a lot of Donnell's work is looking at deconstruction from the church and hip hop scholarship and the nexus between the two as he himself is going on his own deconstruction journey from being in the church since essentially birth. And so both of us have had conversations before talking about decolonization and spirituality, the Black church, the revolutions, and what it means to kind of have abolitionist moments of deconstruction so that we can imagine new futures. Well, this time around, we decided to do a little bit something different and do another love together that both of us share, which is a love of smoking up and talking some shit. So this is an episode that I call Thoughts While High. Now, back in the day, I did this by myself on the Tickety Talk. I talk about that in the conversation. And this time around, I thought it'd be a little bit more fun to do it with somebody that who I personally respect, but also we just have a good time when we have conversations together. And so Donnell and I, over the course of a little over an hour and some change, talk about our love of music because both of us are music heads. He's a hip hop scholar, like I said a little bit earlier, and I'm just a lover of music, and I'm experimenting with music more. And I'll have more about that coming up pretty soon with a collaborator and friend of mine. I'll have him on later on in the season, in which we're experimenting with music and sound and group meditation and abolitionist world building. So if you're in the Chicago area, look out for a in-person experience. It's going to be dropping in early June. But again, I'll be having more information about that and talking about that with my collaborator for us later on. But this time around, we're just talking about me and Donnell, just talking about music, talking about community, and then also talking about this present moment with in hip hop and what is going on with the Diddy lawsuits. So I'm not going to give away too much. I'm not going to give away too much, but that's the episode that's going to be coming up. Now, before I jump into that, I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping. So if you want, you can go ahead and just jump to the conversation. So thank you for staying if you're still here with me. All right. So there's different ways to support my work. And for those who have been able to support my work, both monetarily and non-monetarily, as always, it is greatly appreciated. So I do have a Patreon called Abolitionist Dreamscapes as well, in which I talk about all kinds of things from breaking societal structures that don't work for us by understanding what those structures are, to dreaming of new worlds by coming back into the body and understanding that our bodies are elemental. So when you become more aware, when you become more quote unquote woke, you are essentially becoming more human. And in that humanity, we must understand that we have a relationship to and responsibility for that relationship with other forms of life. So I talk about ancestors, I talk about the elements, nature, veneration, and other things like that on my Patreon. So if you're interested in that, I got tiers starting as low as $5 all the way up to $100. And that is the space that I am building essentially what I would call my own idea of a freedom school by having us really understand the relationship between breaking and dreaming. So you can find out more on my Patreon. Okay. I also have a Substack of the same name, Abolitionist Dreamscapes, in which I essentially talk about the same things within my writing. And so building my archive of writings and reflections there as well. So I have both free and paid essays and short write-ups there. And it is essentially another space, kind of a newsletter of sorts as well for me, for folks who want to kind of be up to date with certain events and offerings that I have going on. So you can subscribe to my Substack there as well. Now, I also have a consulting and coaching business, Truesdale and Associates, in which I work primarily with leaders, tend to be mainly Black and queer leaders in various industries, and also different departments and organizations and offices within different industries who are needing either cultural assessments or need help in revisioning and reworking the structures and policies and procedures and or programming being offered. So you can find out more in my offerings and how to work with me on my website, drnicoletruesdale.com. And lastly, I have a program that I am launching August 8th. Now, this is called Believe Your Reality. It's a very limited program. It's for 6 Black women leaders who are at a crossroads in their work, in which you are needing to strategize differently because you are starting to believe the reality of the organization you're in, and you're trying to figure out the crossroads where to go next. And so I am offering a program called Believe Your Reality. It's a 2-month program in which I'll have 3 live Zoom sessions with cohorts that go over various topics like what it means to believe and then break the strong Black woman trope. How do you take back your time once you understand the space you are in? And when you can understand that the institutions that you are a part of are parts of these systems that are rooted in plantation economies, when you believe that reality, how do you then center your sense of self, center your humanity as a way to strategize so that when you are walking in these spaces, you understand that you are walking into a space that is dirty. And because it is dirty, it is coded in the foundations of the nation state. What does it mean then to protect yourself by being grounded in your sense of self, grounded in your body, and bringing that body logic alive? How do you work with that as a means to strategize through a human-based lens, no matter what industry you're in? So I talk about that through the Zoom lessons, along with having opportunity to do one-on-one coaching with me through this program called Believe Your Reality. So if you are interested in that, please check out my website, drnicoletruesdale.com. There's a short application to fill out, if when you sign up. And it's professional development. So if you have professional development funds, then you can use that for this program. And if you need more documentation or information, you can also find out ways to reach out to me, again, at drnicoletruesdale.com. Okay. I think that's it for now. You'll find anything else that I need to talk about in the show notes below. And as always, again, I appreciate your support. So let's now go to the conversation between me and Donnell called Thoughts While High, a conversation on music, community, and what it means to dream in this present moment. All right, I got a little treat for y'all today. So today I'm talking with the incomparable, the amazing writer, theologian, husband, teacher, storyteller, and weaver, the Donnell A. McLaughlin. Did I say that right? Did I say
You
that
did
right?
say that right.
Okay, here we go. See, I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of myself. Now, this is going to be a little new, y'all. So we're experimenting here. We're playing and we're creating. And this is going to be an episode called Thoughts While High. So if you follow me on TikTok, I used to do this back in the day when I first got on. I did a little 3-minute segments of Thoughts While High where I basically smoked a little weed, talking about some shit, and told folks what's on my mind. And when I was talking with Donnell back in December, we were talking about, I was talking about how I miss doing that. And Donnell's like, I actually like that show a lot. It cracked me up. And I said, well, why don't we do one together then? We both like a little weed. We like to talk shit, and we can tell folks what's on our minds together. And so here we are today doing this for y'all. So, Donnell, I would like you to introduce yourself, though, and how you would like to be in this space. So who are you and why are you here?
My name is Donnell. Just that. White folks pronounce it differently than white folks, but it's Donnell, and I'm in this space to, as your cousin, as your co-laborer, as your comrade in the struggle for liberation, to learn and to grow and to expand consciousness and have discourse with other brilliant minds. And that's what finds me always at the feet of Dr. Nicole Truesdale. So I'm grateful to be here. Excited to have the conversation.
All right. Thank you, Donnell. Well, let's get into it, y'all. So before we got on, we were talking about some things that would interest us both, right? And one thing is that we both love music. Now, Donnell does a lot of hip hop scholarship, but also music himself. And then me, I pretend I can sing, but I love me a good playlist.
Me too.
And and I love working with music, and I've been experimenting with music. Stay tuned for that, y'all. Stay tuned. I'm experimenting with some things with
Oh
music and
snap!
sound and stuff with somebody. So as a way to incorporate it into my work. But that got me thinking about what we're seeing in the news right now, right? So we got a whole bunch of things going on in hip hop right now with what people are calling the hip hop Epstein with what's going on with P. Diddy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not good at all. Like, it's things that people have talked about for years. People talked about, have been rumored, right? But when you really get into it and read it, or at least even listen to people who have read it, right? If you can't get into there's a trigger warning. There's a
Yeah,
goddamn trigger warning on, and anything against Diddy lately has hit a trigger warning on it. That's a problem. Like, for the court documents, right? There's a lot of shit going on, like from sexual assault to human trafficking to child trafficking, right? To
goodness.
abuse, to all this stuff. But then when you listen to how some folks are talking about all of the charges and what is being levied against Diddy, they're not focusing on that, right? Instead,
Not
they're
at all.
focused, right? What are they focused on Donnell?
They're focused on sexuality. I go on Twitter and I see Meek Mill is trending #3 in the United States. Now, I told y'all, Dr. Nicole Truesdale told y'all I'm a hip hop historian. So I know Meek Mill from battle rapping in Philly. I used to go on YouTube as a kid and watch Meek Mill in the streets of Philly with nappy braids,
Really?
like battle rapping against other Philadelphia rappers. And so that's how long I've known of Meek Mill's work and what he's been doing and his kind of come up in music. So I, as a fan, I'm like, okay, let me see what's going on, and it's all this discourse about, you know, Meek Mill uh, and P Diddy having sexual relations, or and stuff like that, and the whole conversation everyone is talking about is Meek Mill being gay. Meek Mill is on a 50 tweet tirade. Talking about how they keep doing this to black men, and they just trying to distract you from my music and blah blah blah. Not just saying no, that's not true. That's fine. But that's just not true. He goes on a 50 tweet tirade about all this because he's being literally bullied on the internet because all people are talking about is him being gay. That's the entire conversation.
That's it. And that's all I'm focused on, right? And
Hmm.
and then people talking about and then people are using these words, honestly, that I ain't heard since the 90s. Like, I'm an 80s baby, right? You a bit
Hmm.
younger than me, so we on the old and young millennial spectrum,
Hmm.
literally. And so it's like, I ain't heard some of these words since like the 80s and 90s. Like, people talking about them being fruity. And I'm like, what? Like, it just, I'm like, and I'm sitting here like, I was talking to my friend about this.
The new one is
Um,
zesty.
Zesty, right? Sassy. Like, that's not new, y'all. That we heard that shit back in the day as well,
Hmm.
right? And so, but it reminds me of something, like, of how, like, I talk a lot about time being in loops and shit, and we
Hmm.
can see how much of a loop it's in, because I feel like the rhetoric is back in the 90s again. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? You know how a height of the beginning of hip hop, and it was starting to dominate, but also high homophobia, right? Overall in society, and then also in the music itself, right? Not just
Hmm.
that, and in rock and stuff like that, like, and you feel it feels so familiar, because it's like we can't even do 2024 homophobia right. We still doing 1990s. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, it's boring at this point, but it's
It's the
dangerous,
same
but it's
old.
boring.
Yeah,
Same
it's
shit.
the same conversations, the same kind of bullying, nitpicking behavior. Like if you go on Twitter, it feels like you're literally watching a child get bullied. Like, but in the words that they're using, zesty, fruity, he got some sugar in his tank. All those types of conversations. Like I always felt like he had some sugar in his tank. People are saying these are the conversations that we're having, not about P Diddy's power. As the head of an industry that has the power to influence career outcomes, and how he was leveraging that power to harm people,
Yes.
men, women, whoever.
Yes.
That's not the conversation. We're talking about sexuality. Like we're still stuck on that.
And that actually then leads to the underlying issue, right? Is that the only one of the main ways that Diddy was even able to have that power is because of the embedded homophobia, queerphobia within society, right? And then
Yes.
so if this does not show us that how dangerous these oppressive systems are to all of us, he was able to use and weaponize that to have power over everybody. Right,
Goodness.
when you hit the margins, y'all, this is a great example of when you don't understand how the oppressor sits in you, that motherfucker will show up and rear its ugly head almost worse within the oppressed themselves, because now they have even more spaces to hide, in the open. Because
Mm-hmm.
people been talking about this, right? Let's be real. We've been hearing this shit since the early 2000s,
Yeah.
right? Like, and this also shows us, if we think about it, Donnell, how short collective memory is now too. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it makes we don't realize how much, because everything is everything is shortened. We think that because we have all this information out there that we know things.
Yeah.
People don't know shit. We having the same conversation. You know what I'm saying? We've had the same, like, you could, if you listen to some old school conversations between, who was it? It was like Cornel West and, was it Sister Soldier?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, right? She was talking about this then.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? All these kind of different aspects of it, but we don't have the kind of collective memory because it's purposely cut short. But also, we don't have the media literacy. So here we are again, 2024. This motherfucker has done some messed up things, murder, right? Like kidnapping.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is y'all want to
These some
glorify the
serious
mafia, but
allegations.
this is some
Yeah.
mafia type cartel shit. Y'all glorify all this shit, but here is what it looks like, right? And these are who are affected. People that you think are, right? Now, isn't it Young Miami? Ain't she now indicted too, or a part of this whole thing as well? Like,
I mean, yeah, I think they were in a relationship for a long time, or on and off, on again, off again type thing.
yeah,
But I did
like,
not know that she was involved. That's crazy.
that was some stuff. Like, it's crazy, allegedly. Like, I want to make sure allegedly. I'm just, but like, this is all like, it shows how violent, when you let these systems just sit and you don't interrogate how you contribute to them, like what's our responsibility in this moment as the collective, right? We want to
Mm-hmm.
talk about collective power. I think about, I'm an astrologer, right? So I think about Pluto and Aquarius and folks talking about power to the people, power to the people. Yo, come on now. You got to actually put some action into the power. There's
Mm-hmm.
only power when you have action behind it. And right now, the action just seems to be the same shit. We're going to focus on the superficial homophobic shit, right? Transphobic shit, as a way to skirt our own responsibility and how we also uphold these violent systems. Because sometimes I feel like folks are making the excuse because you would do what Diddy did in one way, shape, or form.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what you don't want to also look at it and admit to. That's why you're going around and doing all this stuff. So I think that we have to really look at how a dangerous, like, truly understand how dangerous queerphobia, homophobia, transphobia truly is for all of us, because it does impacted everybody in the music industry.
I didn't realize. I didn't think about it that way in terms of like how you mentioned that he was able to use the queer, like the homophobic nature environment to leverage that power, because like the shame around it is so deep
Yes.
that like people aren't going to say anything, even if it's like true. Like I would never admit out loud, like over my dead body will I admit, because the
Yes.
depths of the queer phobia that you inherit from the church, from society, from the school, from everywhere, the fucking government, like that is real, and it shows up in the way of like you're not going to say anything as a man if another man allegedly violates you.
Yes. Right. So what the latest, what's that man, what's the man's name, the producer that has the lawsuit out now?
Oh, I forgot the name of the producer.
Yeah, but
DJ something.
I mean, that's actually brave, right? Because you're breaking through and you're just admitting, like, no, I was violated,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, that's because the thing is, we talk about, people want to, and this is where we also have to understand the violence of patriarchy, right? Of a Christian white patriarchy. This is how this shows up within non-white bodies, right? This is how this shit shows up. Because now, y'all, I've also seen conversations talk about, well, you realize now they only going after black men. Isn't it interesting how they go after
I'm
black
so
men?
tired of that shit,
I'm
man.
so tired. Thank you. We going back to the
God
90s
fucking
once again,
damn.
Donnell. Right, Donnell? Thank you. It's the same conversations we've been had. And I know our elders know, girl, we've had this shit back in the 70s. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, we keep having these same reductive ass, loop ass conversations because the underlying issue is y'all don't want to give up the structures themselves. You want to become the embodiment of the structure.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to believe these people when they say this shit and be like, "Oh, I can't trust you either." Then you ain't you. This is what it is right now. We're in a situation where people are showing us and telling us that they rather focus on, oh, it's only black men now getting called out, or oh, he little fruity, like
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? Versus this man ran a whole ass cartel, like in the public
In
and
public
had
view. Yep.
support in public view for decades and paraded it in front of our faces and then used us as the populace who were supporting and funding it.
And knew that y'all wasn't gonna say shit
Thank
because
you.
this is the the environment, the especially around queer phobia, homophobia. It's like no one's going to admit that this is what's going on.
Not at
But
all.
like, and then like all the videos are resurfacing of Diddy, like in interviews or in moments, or there's a video of him in his office saying like, "I get what I want, whatever I want, I take
Yep.
it." Like that's a mentality. That's the mindset of the colonizer.
Yes.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Hey,
And
but yes, Donnell, but
yeah,
remember how glorified that was, though? Because think about
yes,
that. Think about it was
yes,
glorified for us. That was what we were told to inspire to. Because remember back in the day, we also had MTV when MTV actually was MTV and like showed like music videos, but also had those started making music shows, right?
mm-hmm,
And all those and that's when you started seeing reality shows come in through MTV.
mm-hmm,
Right. So not just the real world and stuff, but then like they were showing the celebrity culture. And that's where Diddy really shined with all that shit. Right. You had all of that. That was glorified. And then from there going into hustle culture, shit.
mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like that was what we were told we were supposed to do. And then when he had, remember making the band, the first making the band, when he had them walk across that goddamn bridge for 6 miles for a cheesecake.
Yeah.
Right, and then that was glorified and said that's what you got to do
You
to
gotta do
make
what
it
you
in the
gotta do.
game.
Like how bad do you want it? Like what the
The fuck?
wow, oh my
That
god.
was
That's
what?
crazy. That is
What?
insane. Even the whole
Right?
like whatever I want I get, like that mentality of
That mentality, like
that we condemn and we recognize historically.
that's
It's
rape
terrible, it's
culture.
violent, and
Yes,
literally.
literally, that's what it
Hmm.
is. But y'all want to talk about it just being fruity,
He just did it to other people instead of nations.
and he did it to black folks in particular. Let's not
Yes.
get it focused, right? So let's also bring in the race card too. This is how anti-blackness shows up, and he used that shit to his advantages too, right? Same
Damn.
came for R. Kelly. Who cares about the black girl, especially a young black girl, young black boy? You know what I'm saying? Like, so I think this is how
What
we
was he
gotta
wearing?
understand. What's he? Thank you. We always call them little black girls fast, right? I remember being called fast at 10 because I was big. I mean, shit, I hit 6 foot by the time I was in like sixth grade. I was just a big ass girl, right? And that was back in the day when like only thing you had to
You
buy
were
was
6 feet in what grade?
it was like 6th grade. It was so bad. I
Oh
was
wow.
so I was so tall and I was fat too. So only place I had to shop because back in the day, so this is like the late 80s, early 90s. They ain't got no damn clothes, right? And like I would try to go to Rainbow, but they didn't really have a plus size section.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to go to like Lane Bryant. This is old school Lane Bryant with like the chiffon and shit. So like I didn't have shit to wear. I was just a big bitch. I'm getting called fast, and it's like, no, I'm just no. But yeah, no, anyway. But what were we talking about? Oh yes, let's take it back. Let's take it back, y'all. So we're taking it back. But yeah, but for real, but like this is how this shit shows up, right? And so we got to take responsibility as a collective right now and stop reproducing these reductive ass loops. But also, we got to remember like part of how power keeps going like it is it goes through the people that it hurts the most and it keeps our memories short. So we all, again, we keep having these fucking conversations. This is why I can't stand these goddamn traveling podcast bros and shit on these goddamn relationship conversations. Y'all, this is boring right now. What is that gonna do when you ain't got no damn house to live in?
It's boring and it's useless.
It's useless. Like, as an educator, I'm sorry, there are pointless and distractive questions at these points. We got to stop this shit.
Yes,
not everybody needs to be at the table.
They're especially pointless and distracting when they're being had by people who are not qualified to have those conversations, who don't have the depth to have those conversations.
Don't.
Okay, you still relying on an antiquated framework of the nuclear family as the basis and the foundation of your conversation. Then you don't have the depth for it.
Right. That's what we have to believe, right? And so, but this is why I always tell folks too. When somebody brings you back to the same conversation over and over again, you have to understand that is the only argument they have. So when you bring out another issue or another way, and you want to have the conversation, when there's nothing left in the tank, they will bring you back to what they know. Mm-hmm. Right? That's the loop. So in order to break the loop, you got to break the goddamn conversation. You just got to have the conversation. That's why. I'm sorry. That's why I don't have those. I don't believe in debating, right? So this is why debating is bullshit, y'all. Okay, debating is bullshit. Debating is a tool, literally, of colonization to justify the idea of objectivity as being somehow a universal concept that you can use and deploy to justify the most heinous acts in the world. Okay. That is what a debate forces you into a binary. It forces you into a binary conversation. And then you have to do all this research, and then you have to use tactics to deploy a logic to have you reinforce this binary. Right? Like it doesn't take you anywhere. So debating then will always have you, if one person only has one or two arguments, they love a fucking debate because they'll take you right back into that motherfucker over and over, right? So you have to just break the shit, right? I can't keep having these reductive ass conversations that are basically saying that you are okay with anti-blackness, misogynoir, homophobia, classism. Really, it's just that you want to sensationalize this because now you can capitalize off the motherfucking story.
Man, I used to go on TikTok. Used to feed me these debates of people going back and forth, or Christians debating with people who don't believe in Christianity.
Oh God!
And like, they kept sending me this shit. I was like, I kept hitting not interested, but my problem is I stay there and watch for a little bit because I grew up. But I'm like, I kind of want to see what the arguments is. What is Christian TikTok? How are they defending and upholding, white Christian supremacy today? And you're right. It's like it's this loop, and like there's these little gotchas, and like the person it's just shouting match, but like no one's really listening to each other, especially as a Christian. Like you just assume that. You have all the answers. So like, this is not really a debate. This is you trying to evangelize through debating.
Yes.
By introducing them to Christian ideas and concepts and the hopes that they will change their mind about something.
Yes.
Like there's no winner. Everyone loses.
Thank you. Everyone loses. And there's no space for real difference then, right? So, and I think that's my biggest problem. I think actually, what a lot of people's problems are, they just may not understand it through this. That's how I understand it, at least I should say, is that a conversation should really allow us to have like an underlying premise that we're building a table around. Like there should be allowed differences of understanding of how to engage with something. This is why I really do like that conversation with the black intellectuals from the 1970s. I think it was like Fannie Lou Hamer was on it, and Angela Davis, Kwame Ture. Who else was on it? A couple of other folks as well. I can't think right now. But like, because they didn't necessarily have the same perspectives, but the underlying conversation was around black thought and black radical thought at that time, especially as they were pushing back against an imperialist state. So that overall was like they all agreed we live in an imperialist ass, settler ass state, right? So what does
There's
it mean?
There's an agreement there, yeah.
Right. So like, what does it mean to then build a conversation with understandings of we're going to have to talk through some things, but there's different ways we can do it, right? But this is the thing. We don't know how to handle difference, especially now, because these conversations have been so goddamn reductive over and over and over again. It's like it's shortened people's attention and ability to handle breaking that enough to allow differences to sit and understand that there's going to be different ways to do it. But what's the underlying premise? See, we don't even want to agree on that. Like, do we all agree that this shit ain't working?
Yeah.
Right? Can we at least agree with that
I
first?
was just going to say, like, the basis of people's conversation is different. Like, we're arguing
Thank
from a different
you.
foundation. Some people are arguing for the maintenance of the system, and it just needs some tweaks and some minor changes. And
Yes.
if we just show up to the polls and if we just show up to the local elections, and again, not poo-pooing that altogether, but just saying, like, that's the conversation. Some people are invested in keeping the status quo and just
Right.
somehow improving it, or some people are realizing fundamentally that this is not sustainable and it's not working. Hasn't worked for a long time. And how do we build some new shit? How do we build something different?
Yes. Yes. Can we get to motherfucking creating something new? Can we sit around like have a smoke, have a drink? This is my thing about when people talk about we gonna switch some topics real quick. This is why I have irritation right now with social media. I was talking to you about this earlier. Like this is why social media is irritating me. And my algorithm needs to change up because like I can't handle these conversations either between like the libs and the leftists, the conservatives, the whatever the fuck else it is, right? They're irritating because it's the same fucking conversation, right? Like, what are we creating? Like, that's what I want to have a conversation about. Like, if we can agree, because the thing is, even all of them motherfuckers are agreeing that it ain't working. From whatever perspective it is, it ain't working, right? But they're all stuck in the same binary loop, and they're all stuck in one way or another in the conservative logic, right? We know the conservative logic. They just want to go straight authoritarian. But I think that's real cute and funny because, again, if we remember Reaganomics, right? And the conservatives in the 80s, they were about what? Small government, right? States' rights, right? So they said that shit didn't work. So they took a real quick pivot. They said, "Oh, all right, boo, all right. We're gonna behind the scenes plan two, though. Plan two. Oh, though. If that shit don't work, we just gonna take over, right? Like,
Just
so
take
they
over the
said,
whole shit.
want to take it all over, right? Like, but the thing is, you know what the thing is though? They've been saying this. They said we're gonna do one or two things. Either we're gonna take away power and put it locally, or we're gonna take all over, right? So they did the point. Obviously, they go on route two, and they said, "Fuck it, we're just gonna go straight authoritarian."
January 6th. That's what that was.
That's what that was.
It's like,
right?
it's time. Yeah, it's not
It's
working.
like boom.
Where's the president? We want to actually hang the vice president. Can we arrange that?
We're just gonna do that real quick, right? We're just gonna do that real quick, right? So they're pretty clear about what they want to do. But like when you go to the leftists and the liberals right now, it's just this like is the conservatism shows up in the purity, right? In one way, shape, or form. So the purity is in the idea of people need to still hold the party line, right? And I don't care what they say. There's some logics going out there people are trying to use saying that it's not true. People are saying vote blue no matter who. Y'all need to stop that. You know you full of shit. Now you need to
That's all
stop.
I have seen.
That is
That's the majority
we
of the
got to stop
conversations that
that.
I've seen.
Thank you. Like, let's stop that. Let's stop trying to do these mental intellectual, like, because the thing, you know what it reminds me of? You know what? I think it's triggering Donnell because you also work in academia. It's reminding me of a motherfucking faculty senate meeting. It's reminding me of a faculty senate meeting in which a bunch of faculty are sitting there arguing about a damn comma or a period in the damn faculty handbook because of so and so's the Dewey Decimal System law. I swear to God, that's what it reminds me of. Like, it's like y'all not doing what you think you doing, what you think you doing, what I think you doing, right? It's like this mind game of you trying to still just telling us to pull the party line. To me, that's a purity politic. That's a reductionist of saying like, no, this is a binary. We're going to stay here. And then the leftists, like, there's this like, it's like a purity like of like, well, if you don't do it exactly as I think you do it, then you're an op, right? Or that you're not doing it right. Therefore, you're not doing it at all. Like it's this weird pessimism. Does that make sense? Like, am I making any sense? Like, it's like this weird pessimism. Yeah. It's like this weird, like we're gonna idealism, pessimism. If that makes sense.
In the party, like the belief in the party and belief in, like, them doing or are like towing the party line and contributing to that and the maintaining of that system.
Yeah, but also just like it's like if we can't do it exactly perfectly, then fuck it, don't do it at all. So that whole like when people are trying to get together over coffee and shit, and then people were saying like, well, if it's not perfectly done, you can't do it at all. And can we trust people to like go out and this is like an op and everything's an op now, right? And basically it's people you have social anxiety. People have social anxiety and they don't want to admit they have social anxiety. So instead of realizing that they have to go out and touch grass and talk to other people if they want to truly build like community and shit and mutual aid,
Yeah,
all of a sudden everything is like, well, I can't trust that initiative because it's an op, or I can't trust that because it's like, y'all, come on now. Like, what do you really want? Like, what is this? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I
what
really,
is this?
I really feel like we are not enough people, or I think people are having the conversation about the impact of like technology and all that stuff on how we interact to one another, and just like the
Mm-hmm.
increasing of social anxiety, our inability to like have conversations with people, especially since the pandemic too. Like that, I feel like that also hit us really hard in
Mm-hmm.
terms of our ability to connect to one another. There's just a lot of anxiety about a lot of different things, including sickness, including, you know, mistrust. There's a lot of mistrust. You don't know who to, trust anymore these days. And I feel like that's been intentionally sewed into kind of like the society and the times now through media, through all these different modes, where like we're in a time now where we're more connected than ever, but also more disconnected than ever. Um, and that kind of it really feels like there's a lot of like kind of irrational fears that are showing up because of that, and anxiety that are showing up that make people have a harder time connecting to one another. Like, how are you experiencing that? Or
I think I agree with that. I think for me, I've had to learn how to rethink what it means to build community, right? And what community even means for and to me. Um, and I think that's what we're all being forced to have to do is that we're going to have to realize, and I do agree, the lockdowns, the COVID, the lack of trust in anything, right? Like of what to believe, what not to believe, who to believe and stuff has really broken a lot of our abilities to connect together. But I
hmm
would also argue that before all of that, connections were already broken, right? We have again, we our collective memory is very short. I think that's on purpose. I think that's both a tool employ of current power structures to keep you always both never not really present but always short-sighted. Again, these conversations in loops, right? We go back in these weird loops, but at the same time, like, we have to remember before all of this hustle culture and the grind and the startups and the constant growth, like capitalism was getting out of true control, and
hmm
that was heavily impacting our relationships, right? How many of us in during the lockdowns had to move again, right? Move back. Many people talked about great migrations again, of having to realize what was important to them or not, because they in lockdown times they were away from home, away from
hmm
community, away from family, away from anything, right? um I think we have to remember that it was already broken, like it was cracked. It was very fundamentally cracked. We were all living in this illusion and lie that if we just did something a little bit more different, it would change, but it wasn't, right? And then
hmm
it broke, right? Society has broken, and but it was always going to break because capitalism was stealing everything. It stole our connections. It stole our ability to slow down, to be. So I think that overall, because we are having to be more conscious of ourselves, of our bodies, quite frankly, like we do have to be clear about what we're feeling, how we're feeling. There needs to be an understanding of precautions around COVID and other respiratory illnesses, because at the end of the day, our bodies are finite. This is what we've been learning for the past few decades. I mean, past few years, excuse me, right? Of our finite bodies.
hmm
but we're also having to learn that we need one another. Like, so this is the conundrum, right? We're learning that our bodies are finite. So this idea of hustle and grind makes no sense. This idea that if you got a long haul, you got a motherfucking long haul. So now you're understanding with folks who have disabilities their whole day in life have been talking about, right? And the lack of care and access. But also you're understanding the need to have care and access networks. Like we need one another.
We do.
Like that's also one of the biggest things we learned. And we also learned we needed what? What was the biggest thing that people turned to during those times? It was entertainment.
Yeah.
And creativity, right? It was like, and it's not to romanticize it at all. It's to really put at the table the duality of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I don't think this also shows how much the binary cuts into our kind of conversations, right? And our ability to really just kind of sit in the muck and the mess of being human, because there was a duality in all of that. Millions died and we still have to grieve. Millions more are now disabled in one way, shape, or form. Many of us are. Really, anyone who has had COVID, you are now there's one way your body is changed. We don't know how it's going to impact us as we get older, right? We still don't know, right? We are having our kids. We have no idea how this is going to make an impact our ability to act as how we were taught we're supposed to act and perform as humans, right? So we're having to really sit and grapple with new realities. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and so then the care comes in. So who's caring for you and why, and who do you care for and why now really fucking matters too. So that's the duality of it. Like that's the fucking messiness. So like we have to grapple with then what does it mean to understand what a collective is. And the way individualism is showing up now, I think, is through the utilization. People gonna get pissed at me when I say this, okay? But it is what it is. Individualism and capitalism is showing up once again in its weaponization and utilization of therapy language now. Right, and how it's so out there now, and we are more aware. Again, we have more information. More information does not make us more conscious in society.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like it does not make us a more empathetic. It just gives us more information, but what are you filtering it through? Right? I think that's what we're coming up, and I think that's where we're also having these realities collide with people's reactions to things like what's going on in Gaza, going on in Congo, going on in Sudan, but also going on here, quite frankly, right?
Yes.
And what has been going on here. Let's not be arrogant, y'all. The U.S. is fucked up too, right? In different ways, like. So I'm rambling now, but you know what I'm trying to say? Like,
yes.
It's just this, like.
How individualism is showing up in therapy language. I was thinking about that, especially when it comes to like, connecting in the community and stuff like that. Like, it seems like a lot of the guidance is about like making sure that you're, protecting your, setting boundaries and protecting your peace and, putting you first and cutting people off if necessary and making sure that you are prioritizing your sanity and, dealing with your anxiety. But it's like, how can we exist in community if that is the default thing? And how do we deal with the nuances of, yes, we might have anxiety around these people or this person, but this is also a person who's, also impacted by these systems that we're trying to, reimagine. And how can we build together towards something despite, any differences or any anxieties one might have? How do we hold both? Because we've held both for a long time. Historically, we've held both. And so if it's been done before, it's possible. We just have to get there. That's why that I was watching that an interview with Toni Morrison. She was just talking about, we know what we have to do. We just have to get there. We just have to. And I'm getting chills thinking about it because it's so simple, but it's like, we do know that we need one another. We know that we need community. We know that this shit isn't working. We know, that these empires will lay waste to us at the, we know all this information is already out there. We're the most informed generation, ever because of the age of technology.
Mhm.
So we know what we have to do and what we need and what is right and what is true. We just have to get there. We know what we have to do. Um, and so, what does getting there look like? And that's something that I'm definitely challenging myself on, every day. It's like, what does getting there look like for me? What does, cultivating community look like for me? Um,
What is it though? Let's dream. This is why. So this is why I talk about dreaming so much, right? Abolitionist dreamscapes, right? Because we can break the ship. We got to dream at the same time. So like, what does community look like for you? No, no, not let's not even do look. Let's bring it back to music. What does community sound like for you?
um, like, what does it sound like? Noises?
However you want to, however you want, let your imagination go. However you want to interpret that.
Okay,
You're the
what
hip
is,
hop scholar. You the hip hop artist. Come on, you know how to flow and beat. What does the community
okay.
sound like for you?
Community sounds like the sizzle of the grill
Mm.
and some good music and some chatter and laughter. Community sounds like um, um, community sounds like I don't know. I think that's where I'm at right now. I'll leave it
Hmm.
there. That's what community
Yeah.
sounds like.
Well, that's a good start, right? 'Cause
Do
that's
you
the
have
whole. It's
anything to add to that, or
for me.
yeah?
Ah, yeah. So I think I've been thinking about this a lot. So community for me sounds like a DJ set and hearing people as they like literally dance to the music. So I hear like I hear feet and I hear other people singing and I hear the the kind of breeze in the back that is kind of hot because there's so many bodies there. Like it's like bodies together swaying is for me community.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the important piece, right? We have to dream. We have to start figuring out what it and I go to sound because when we think, right? We think and it can start to bind us. But what does it feel like? What does it taste like? What does it sound like? What is it, you know, what does it look like? I think those kind of senses, it gets the body in so that we remember that we got a body, right? And I think that helps with community because I'm realizing something too. We talked about this in my Patreon. Actually, this is so funny. We just talked about this in my Patreon a week or two ago. Um, is that for me, community is also messy. So this
It
is why that
is.
purity shit's got to go away, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes the person that's gonna rock with you ain't gonna be the person that you think it is. And so like this is where, and I love my people, but this is where the justice spaces can really get you fucked up because you're like, well, I need a person got to be ABC. They can't be so and so, so and so, so and so, so. Okay, but what do you actually want? Like you know what you don't want, but what do you want? Like who you want to break bread with? For me, it's like I need to be able to break bread with you. I need to be able to have a meal with you. I need to be able to have a drink with you. You ain't gotta always be alcoholic. We need to be able to have a drink together. We need to be able to, if we have a smoke together, right? This is why I like to do the smoke and talk and drink. And like, I need to be able to break bread with you because that to me is a very intimate act
Yeah.
and it's a very human act, right? And this is where I can get to know you, get to know me, right? Because that's when you relax, the contradictions come out, but we're all contradictory. That doesn't have to be bad. You just see somebody for who they are and they can see you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think for me, community feels like I can feel or sounds like or feels like vulnerability. Like it feels like I can be so in my body that all of me comes out. Right. All like it all can come out in a way where it can also be safe and replicated back to me with you so that we're no even in our mess, that even if I don't fuck with you in a few years, I can still hold that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
or something happens where it's naturally and we break apart because we move. I can still hold that because we had that, you know what I'm saying? We had that space together. So I think that to
100%.
me, you know,
Wow.
like, well, we got to allow mess in, y'all, you know, and I think that's what I'm doing right now is really allowing myself to be messy. Oh, yeah, I guess a little messy for me, right? Because it's me exploring myself, right? Like, and exploring what it means to like be with others who are just messy as well, and not in a nasty way,
Yeah.
or not in a like a oh you a petty way, but like just in a human way.
Yeah. I feel like, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to like do this. I thought it would just be a really good opportunity for us to chill in a different way. And
Mm-hmm.
you're right. Like, I feel like going back to therapy language, I think therapy language also kind of conditions us to those feelings of discomfort, and that messiness is like inherently bad.
Right.
And it's like, no, like, and it's like I do feel like I've kind of been trained at the, like, to feel like a discomfort from people having a significant difference from me, or like having a, different belief, or existing in a different way, or doing something that I wouldn't do. Um, and I'm, of course it's not about, I don't want people to be like me, but I do expect people to have the same, I do have a, tend to lean purist when it comes to my, beliefs around, just humanity and,
Mm-hmm.
inclusivity and all these different things, compassion, justice, that sort of stuff. Um, but I've kind of like, I feel like have been trained a little bit to run from the discomfort of being met with someone who, may have a difference in that way. And instead of like
Mm-hmm.
leaning into it and like accepting the messiness of that and dealing with the nuance of that, I kind of like, tend to, I feel like I've been trained to deem that inherently bad.
Mm-hmm. But think about it, Donnell. Okay, so folks that don't know, me and Donnell and I have had, I think I said it earlier. I'm hot shit. I forgot. And then me and Donnell I had two or previous conversations about deconstruction and spirituality and the like. But if you think about it, Donnell, right? Isn't it interesting because the lessons of Jesus are is that he accepted difference. He accepted
Mm-hmm.
prostitutes at his table. He accepted the poor at his table. He accepted
The tax
lepers at like
collectors.
right
Mm-hmm.
tax collectors, right? He flipped tables in his daddy's house and said, "What you're not gonna do is be hustling over here when you got poor folks out there, right?" Like, so the tenets of is acceptance of difference, but the training of it is to not accept difference if they don't, because it is about the disciplining of you conforming to a certain thing, right?
Yes.
Right, you see what I'm
Yes.
saying, right? And so we
Yes.
see it showing up. So this is how this shit shows up in society, right? It's an energy,
Ooh,
right? It's an
damn.
energy and spirit, right? This is why I talk about spiritual warfare. People think you might think I'm crazy, but I don't mean I'm wrong.
Damn.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is the spirit of it, and it shows up in how it becomes. So this is honestly, if you think about it too, this is why Brene Brown got her ass handed to her when she put out that lukewarm a statement about her stance on the what she's quote unquote the Israel Hamas war, made a whole career about vulnerability, but yet couldn't deploy her own concept in a real life situation because she was still filtering it through that purist lens that was still favoring the state, right? You still favoring a kind of kowtowing to that kind of patriarchal Christian way of being, right? You just put it through a lens of kindness, right? As vulnerability. You water down radical black and womanist thought, right? So this is where if we think about it and building community, we gotta learn how to be good heathens. Right? This is about being a good heathen, not instead of trying to be the good Christian. Because the Christian don't want difference at the table. The Christian want everybody to be the same and can tell to that patriarch. You got to
That's
be a good
true.
heathen.
Because, like, even, I mean, that's the model of evangelism, is that like
Mm-hmm.
you're befriending someone under the assumption that eventually they will, your lights will influence them, and they will, transform to your way of thinking and thought because it's naturally superior. That's an insane
Ain't that
concept.
some fucked up shit?
That's an
Ah,
insane
you.
concept.
That's a MLM. Think about it. That's MLMs, multi-level marketing schemes. And if that ain't the American motherfucking way,
Dang.
I'm selling you something under the guise of friendship. Right? So you got to be a good heathen. I don't want to sell you nothing, baby, but I want you at my table so we can break some bread and have some fun, right? So that we can get to know one another, so that I can see like what we can build together, right? Because we are building. Community is about building something. It's an ecosystem. So that if some shit hits the fan, you know, I got you for X, Y, and Z, and I know you got me, right? Like this is community. And sometimes community ain't always going to be friends, right? Because you can have friendships and friends everywhere, but who is your community that you got you locally? Who is the folks? And and you can have friendship and community overlap, of course, but like we have to understand we have different networks for a reason. But then what happened? Motherfucking capitalism took networking and made it a whole LinkedIn, made it a whole app. Water that shit down. Because we do need networks, right? But I think we have to really interrogate our understanding of safety and security and service and labor and stuff. This is an exchange economy, but we don't want to keep being extractive. I think we have to just start to imagine what it looks like to care for one another. Like we all live in a system that has made us all mentally unwell. So we're going to have to accept the fact that we are all in these kind of crossroads of messiness to me, that we're going to have to figure out, okay, we know what you don't want, but what do you actually want? And see, that's the responsibility, right? So this is why we keep in these reductive loop conversations, I think, like talking about the beginning, because it allows us to skirt responsibility of, okay, but what do you actually believe in and want? Right? Can you face yourself? Because I think that's what it is. It's the whole Diddy conversation, right? Even honestly, I'm gonna jump conversations real quick, Donnell. Cat Williams conversation with Shay Shay on Club Shay Shay. I'm gonna say something. Maybe it's gonna be a little controversial. Maybe it ain't gonna be. Overall, okay, Cat. That's fine. I'm not gonna lie though. The underlying homophobia that is there toward the end made me uncomfortable. And I know, but it's couched in a way. And hear me out. Here's my mind.
It was a long interview. I probably don't remember the second you talked about.
No. Yeah, let me explain what I mean. Right? Okay. I understand what he's saying about Hollywood, and when he was talking about the roles that he turned down and how he had to change that one role. I think it was next Friday because there's going to be the rape scene. And he said, why do black men have to be raped all the time? Now, I understood the one part of it. I'm not dismissing that. There is a way that there is, because it's Hollywood and the white imagination, especially in media, right? Especially in media and film, we see this kind of utilization of sexual violence toward black bodies, black men's bodies in particular, black women's bodies in other ways, right? So that's real. At the same time, though, there's an underlying theme that's there when you listen to him, when he's talking about that, they're talking about the saliva, right, and licking, and he only likes females, and saliva this, and and there's an underlying way that there's an underlying homophobia there, or queer phobia there, that allows for this fine line to be had. He knows what he's doing. Okay, Cat's not dumb, but he walks a fine line of both telling a truth and also reproducing an oppressive understanding of sexuality and difference. Am I making sense?
No, yeah, you're making sense. I do.
Like, now, folks may not agree, but
those conversations, when they get brought up, they do. There is this underlying. It's not said in a vacuum. It's said in the context of there being a lot of thoughts and beliefs, and we exist in a culture of homophobia and all that stuff. And I feel like whenever you have those conversations, you're playing with that. It's the same thing. It's the same underlying thing that's in the conversation about who's wearing a dress and who's not wearing a dress.
Right.
There's this underlying thing of like men wearing dresses and how that emasculates black men and all these different things. So there's no way you're having those conversations without, making an implication or making a suggestion about, homophobia and that sort of thing.
Yes, thank you, Donnell. Exactly, because there's an assumption about what then a real black man is. Right? But that trope, it relies upon a white male patriarch ideal. It's just a black face on top of it. Is exactly. And so my thing is, that what we really want? Like, because I also talked about Diddy in that conversation, right? And I really, it's also kind of irritating and also almost infuriating when people want to say, oh, they already talked about this and stuff. And the way it was talked about was Diddy's going to diddle with him, right? It was still through a homophobic, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not this power dynamic of like, do y'all understand that like what he's like what is really being said is that this man is so powerful, unless you kowtow to him in the most submissive and violent way possible, there is no ability for you to have true quote unquote. That's what he's really saying, right? But we're not getting to that root. We're getting to this kind of superficial, like
it's all about him being gay and that
yeah,
being the issue.
it's not the issue. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not. And this is why we can allow shit to happen in these institutions, like these churches and these corporations, right? Where we have the sexual abandonment, because people are too afraid to talk because of the stigma of the shame is more has more weight than the actual violent act itself.
100%.
You know what I'm saying?
That's
like,
exactly what I was saying earlier. Like the shame it's so undergirded in all of our conversations and all of our institutions. Like the shame is that deep. Like I would rather over my dead body will I admit that this is, that this happened to me.
Yeah.
Because the shame that it will bring on me, like the way that I know my family will probably, not speak to me or distance themselves from me because of the stigma and shame around that. So it's not just about like, oh, like people are going to know. It's like, how are people going to act? Like, how is your community going to react? Are you going to lose community over this? Like, like it's all of those layers. So people will really, take that all the way to the grave.
Yeah.
But that's how it harms us, right? That's how it harms us, because it allows these same behaviors to be continue without it being addressed.
Yes. And so I think if we want to break, if we really want to build, right? If we really say we want to do like kind of the mutual aid, if we say we really want to like, do commerce differently, we want to, build new systems differently. And if we really can't do it at the national level, we can only do it at the local, like all these theories, right? And then we also call down our community ancestors all the time. How many times we hear about Harriet Tubman and Malcolm X and Dr. King, right? And all the folks that folks like to talk about. But I'm like, what are we learning from them that we can actually deploy and imagine so that we build right now? Like, this is the building phase. This is the creation phase. We have to create. And in order to create, we're going to have to truly believe like what is going on and understand that the only way that these systems are going to change is by us, because we're also the ones helping to uphold them. Like we just talked about this whole conversation, right? Like we're the ones helping to uphold with these looped conversations, right? And the loop keeps getting shorter and shorter, making again our collective memory. So this is why we need to create, because our collective memories are purposely being shortened. So we need archives. Like we need to be talking about the old ways. Even though I don't feel it's that old, Donnell. So old.
It's not that long ago.
It's not that long ago, but then it is, because technology has moved time so quickly, right? So now, you know what I'm saying? Because like so I'm born in 81. You're much younger than me, but so like in that time, it's really in between the generations. Like I do remember a time when it was just old, like there was no internet. There was like, it was a phone call on somebody's, then we had the beeper, the pagers. So you thought you were doing some shit with the pager. Now, like it's like beep, 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 somebody going to, a little beep thing. And then you got real fancy if your parents was able to get that phone, that big ass first phone that cost a fortune. Like, so like we really went through technology to like, I was just talking to somebody the other day about how the whole nights and weekends, like I couldn't talk to nobody till 7:00 at night. When they said 7 p.m., I was like, yes, I ain't got to wait till 9 p.m. to call your ass. Like, it's like, so even how we communicate is very different. Like there was an expectation that if I said I'm going to show up, I'm going to show up, because I can't get a hold of you no other motherfucking way. Right? Like, so there, and so right. So societal norms have, but we also need to remember, we just got to remember this. Right. I remember going to the club. Yes, we used to wear business casual. I really did. I used to I had pictures of me in a blazer with a pop collar. Thought I was doing it with some big ass hoop earrings. Okay. I was doing some shit. All right.
At the club?
At the club. But it was a white one. It was a white silk pop collar blazer, you know, like big old hoop earrings, like makeup done, like big ass hair. Yes. So anyway,
I
I
need to
used
see
to
that
do it,
picture.
y'all. I used to do it, y'all. I love me some partying. But you used to go and you use like when I remember being irritated or like just a lot of pent up frustration or even anxiety, like because I don't necessarily I go up and down in social anxiety too in grad school. The minute Friday hit, I was looking for the next party. I would be going out and I would dancing my ass off, sweating. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was a weekend of just sweating and partying and going out and seeing who's vibing and what, and then going back to like to the grind again, right? We had different ways of building shit. This is why so we gotta be good heathens again.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You gotta be able to just be with other folks and figure out who actually is a vibe or not. Right? A real vibe, not the vibe through the phone that you can then show for an aesthetic, because that is what you think that is what a vibe is. But what are other types of vibes you can have then too?
Mm.
I'm just talking. So
No,
what you think?
it's crazy that I did not think about how technology, the shift in technology, impacted how we communicated with each other and the urgency with which we communicated with one another.
It's real
Um,
different.
it's very different. And it's also just weird that we're in a time where like um people can just have access to you at all times.
That was
And
a big shift.
that shift, like I think is I don't think we realize the gravity of how that shift impacted how we relate to one another.
No.
Um, yeah, like just the ability, like where you can reach someone at all times because there's a cell phone now. They have a computer walking around in their pocket now. You know what I'm saying?
This is very new. This is very we don't
FaceTime,
understand
all
how
the
new
stuff,
this
the
is.
accessibility to
Yes.
people all the time. Before it was just like the frequency was I don't know. I have to think about how what that shift did because I feel like that um, the urgency with which we showed up for one another because we didn't have access to each other all the time was different, and the way that we related, we spent that time with one another was different.
It was. It's just different. It was a different thing. Because
Yeah.
I remember getting that first BlackBerry in grad school. Because because through Verizon had a special for college students. I went to Michigan State and I was living in East Lansing. I remember that right before I went to do my dissertation field work in the UK. It was a new thing, and I remember that was the first time that I had then my email on my phone. And so then I was getting my email on the spot. And
Mm-hmm.
that was that. Just distinctly remember my ex telling me, because we were just started dating at the time. He was like, why are you like, he's like, you're on your phone now? Like, put that, it's like 9 o'clock at night. Put that shit, like, what do you, like, it was so new. That was a newer thing to do, at least for me. And you know, and so the the
Wow.
normalcy of that, but that was that, even texting, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I had gotten used to texting being in the UK and the little flip phone, but even those little flip phones, right? That was something that I gotten used to living in Ireland before, the texting and stuff. You can do that. But that shit, like, it took so goddamn long on them old ass phones. And
Tap each letter. You got to press multiple times for each man.
that shit was real short to the point. We ain't having a conversation. You hear? Good. Okay.
Pull up like outside. That's it. Like that's all you text.
That's it. Then you accidentally butt dialing somebody because the shit don't really lock. Like, this shit is like, it's just newer, right? It's a newer world.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that, like, this is why we need to create, but I'm going to say this too. Like, this is why the older folks need to create. Creation is not just for the young, creation's for everybody, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we need the different stories. This is about storytelling. We need the storytellers. We need the people in their 30s and their 40s and their 50s and their 60s really telling the stories from their perspectives, their locations, because there are templates out there. We have to learn from one another, right? And we have to
The
learn from our
stories of like
past.
relationship and connection, or the stories of
Relationships, connections, what worked, didn't work. You know, we need to hear all the stories. And this is the thing too, y'all. This is why we have to sit with all of our emotions. Not every story is going to make you feel good.
mm-hmm.
But the story should tell you something. You should take something from it, right? When you read stories, some of the best stories I've read, I ain't like none of the characters. Gillian Flynn, when you actually read all of her books, I remember those books a few years ago. She writes in a way you can't like any of them motherfuckers, but her shit is good.
Mm-hmm.
And it also teaches you some shit. Well, I ain't gonna do like, or damn, do I have that tendency? Like it should, like, the work should help you delve deeper into different aspects, right? It shouldn't be this love and light, but this is where entertainment needs to then also be reinforced. Hence, going back to the whole Diddy thing, right? We have to engage how we engage with entertainment and what is entertaining us and why, because we need the stories. So people need to start creating. We need to take back the power of the story and the storyteller and entertainment and start to create. It ain't gotta be good. Come on now, half the shit we paying right now ain't good
At all.
at all. You know what I'm saying? Half the music we listening to ain't good.
I mean, that everybody complained about how bad Mia Culpa was, but Mia Culpa's the #1 movie on Netflix right now. I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen it. It's bad.
I watched it. Yes, I watched it. I was on a date. I watched it with her, and it just. I said we gotta watch it. Fuck it, we gotta watch it. And it was just like,
gotta see it through.
Wow, like, but you know what it does? It helps me realize we gotta create, y'all. We really do. We gotta take it back. We gotta sit here and just start to do it, right? Like, and I think that, to me, it helps me understand, because if this is what what we call Black excellence, y'all, come on now, we gotta make new definitions. Like, this shit's awful.
And it's crazy what you it's cool that you brought up the how every story isn't going to make us comfortable. You said every story isn't going to make us comfortable. And we have to be okay with that. And it goes back to that earlier point too, though, about like our discomfort when it comes to difference and stuff like that.
Yes.
Like, I think that when we talk about white supremacy being the ocean and not the shark, like, we've adopted the right to comfort. That's a tendency of white supremacy. Like, we feel like we have a right to be comfortable and that nothing can disturb that comfort. And anything that disturbs that comfort needs to be silenced or, shelved or, done away with or distanced from. But it's like, no, like, the reality of the world that we live in is uncomfortable. It's inherently uncomfortable. You're going to feel discomfort, especially if we're trying to, crack that foundation even further and try to rebuild something.
Yes. Yes, Donnell. And because let's be real, you ain't even comfortable to begin with. You're just so disassociated from your body and lying to your goddamn self because you're so used to it, right? That the minute that's now that you feeling some shit, you got to actually sit in that motherfucking discomfort and realize, oh yes, that you always had that pain, boo. It's always been there. Now you're going to listen to it. Now, welcome to being here. Like, I get it. This is why we need the community and care. Like, I realize I need to be able to call somebody and just be able to talk with them and just be myself. Like, please don't think of me as, let me just be me, right? Like, this is why this is fun, right? We can just talk and just be, be in the space together and like conjure and make and create, right? And I think this is what we're trying to do. Like, just be imperfect, but also still in the energy of, but I still am figuring it out. Like, I'm willing to build. I'm really to sit in the mess and muck to see what's working and not working.
Yes.
But we know we got to do something, right? Because this shit ain't working, because I can't keep having those same ass conversations.
Yeah. I can't keep like that. we'll be talking our way until, and nothing gonna change. You're gonna be talking for another 50 years. About
it's
the
not
same
comfortable.
Stuff.
And it's not even true, right? This is why again why we need the stories, right? Y'all got to tell your stories. People got to tell their stories, because just having that out there disproves these repetitive narratives, because they are built upon lies and myths of So this reminds me, okay, y'all, I think in song, but I also think in books. So this reminds me of Paul Gilroy's concept, post-colonial melancholia, in which he talks about, like, in the British context, because my dissertation was in the UK. So in the British context, like in British Empire, it becomes this location of nostalgia for the white working class in the kind of 1950s and through 1980s. But it's a nostalgia for a past that was never really true, because empire didn't truly benefit the white working class. It still benefited the same types of hierarchical systems, right? That's really, 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 really rough representation of his dense ass work. Okay. But it's this idea of the melancholia, right? Because this is why history is so damn important, and why storytelling is so important, because history is a storytelling mechanism that brings experiences with an analysis together through a different time frame. So it's also a timing mechanism. This is why colonization is spiritual in nature, takes your relationship from that, and then steals your history, because it steals your time and timing of life, which steals your connection to different logics of how we connect to one another, right? It's all related. It's all related. So when you can kind of, and even if you don't get that, it's okay. It's really about understanding that you got to take the shit back. So you got to take your time back, which means you got to take your stories back. So we have to take our time back by taking our archives back. Hence, stories are archives, right? Like, so that we can hear from folks. Like, we need to hear the stories from the elder queer folks, queer Black folks in particular, right? Whole generation was wiped out with AIDS. Like, that really was a whole generation. I don't think people understand the devastation of AIDS, especially in the U.S.
I don't think they do
at all.
I feel like I don't fully.
It was devastating. Like, it wiped through Poppy, and people are still traumatized. Like, there are and other people who stories that need to be told, right? And like, so I think that now is if you want to use, if people want to engage with the spirit of Beyonce's Renaissance, right? I'm not going to deify anybody. To me, she's a capitalist, okay? I'm not interested in going to this whole beehive conversation. We need to stop deifying people externally and take the energy you're giving to them and bring it back to yourself and ask yourself what you can create. She put the energy out there of a renaissance. She's working with the energy of an actual communal spirit. Sorry, my internet. So she's working with the energy of an actual communal spirit, because we had a renaissance. Renaissance itself is not just from enlightenment. There's been renaissances throughout space and time, right? We have had a Harlem Renaissance, right? A renaissance is a resurgence, right? It's a conjuring of people coming into different creative modalities and expressing them as a way to both express the times they are in, but also to bring into them spaces, new futures, new ideas, all kinds of different experimentation. It's a time of experimenting. It's a crossroads, right? It's a fucking energy. So instead of giving it up and debating about whether what she's doing is those conversations are meant to be reductive. We know good and goddamn well this shit comes from, always has been, and always will be from Black folks' labor, along with the, quite frankly, indigenous understandings of land, right? So there's always going to be there that keeps you in a loop. Understand that, take the energy and conjure. What are you creating? What can you be audacious with? What can you audaciously take up space in and do and create, because you know you have every goddamn right to? Right? Take and work with the energy. Stop giving it away to somebody else who already has it and already told you what they're going to do. They're going to take it some more and keep it in their own goddamn legacy. Period, point blank. She's already set for her legacy. That's fine, right? What are you building? What is your legacy? Especially if you don't want to be it through a capitalistic means, then baby, you got to create that shit now.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow. I think we're going to be doing this more often.
We should. Let's stop. I be getting it. Weed does not calm me. It kind of just gets me up. All right, I think we're going to end it there. Anything you want to end with, Donnell? How can folks reach out? How can folks get a hold of you? How can folks support your work?
Just support my work by, I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. I don't be on Twitter that much, though, because since Elon took over, I don't really be over there that much. I just go over there to see if it's news, but other than that, Donnell Writes, Donnell Writes, like with a pen. And you can find my work there. Go to the link in my bio, and consider a donation to support my platform as I expand into other modalities and stuff like that. So looking forward to doing more creating for y'all.
Yes, and I'll also have all of that in the show notes, y'all, as well, so you can go directly to Donnell's work and support him. And I mean, I have fun. Let us know if you had fun with this and if you want to see more, because we can definitely make this a recurrent segment of or episode or part of the show, because it's always nice to talk with somebody while also having a little smoke and chill session at the same time.
Indeed. I really enjoyed this.
Me too. All right, y'all. Remember, keep dreaming, keep exploring, because it's through the imagination that we can create the futures we want in the present. Till next time.